Coming to you live from Denver, Colorado, the sports wagering zone. Good morning, wherever you are, whatever time zone you happen to be in. Perhaps you're somewhere out there where you're in the afternoon right now, but right now, right here in New York, it's 11 o'clock Eastern Time. In Denver, it's 9 o'clock Mountain Time. So here we go once again. It's Saturday. We're here every Saturday and Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, coming to you live, of course, on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, but we're also on most of your major podcast platforms as well, such as Spotify or Apple Podcasts or even Google Podcasts. On most of the podcast platforms that we can talk about, we are definitely on board with those as well. So let's take a look at what we're going to be talking about today. Well, of course, yesterday the trading deadline finally came to an end, and we're going to take a look and see who did well, who didn't do well, kind of give you some thoughts on ideas on that. And we're going to do some NFL futures looking into, especially looking at the Washington football team. And of course, we're going to give you a quick perusal of the Green Bay Packers as well, now that Mr. Rogers is back in town. But as always, the first thing we do is we take a look at Major League Baseball. We're going to see what happened yesterday as far as sports were concerned in baseball. The favorites, of course, they did win 9 games to 6 with the biggest upsets by the Rockies here in Colorado, plus 180 on the money line against the Padres. And of course, the Diamondbacks, a big plus 177 against the Dodgers in 10 innings. So the favorites, they lead 58.3% so far on the season. Also, for you analytical guys out there, the overs went 7-6 yesterday. We had two pushes: Cincinnati against the Mets at 8, and Kansas City against Toronto at 10. And once again, we just want to remind you when we talk about a push or a line, we're talking about Las Vegas. Of course, now that we have almost 30 states participating in legal sports betting, it may be different wherever you are right now. So that increased that slim lead for the overs this season up to 50.4%. And that's kind of the story as far as that is concerned. That's the only major sports to talk about. I know the Olympics are going on, but personally, I don't care about the Olympics that much. With all the drug stuff going on, with all the controversies that go on, to be perfectly honest, I really don't care one way or another. I love to see the United States win and go on and win in the games, but when you see what other countries are doing, and who knows, maybe some of the things we're even doing, it just kind of turns me off. So I'm really not interested in it. So that's why I'm not talking about it. It's not that I'm anti-American or anything. I'm just saying that, there's too much controversy going on there. Don't want to be bothered with that at all. So let's take a look at the trading deadline because, it finally came to an end yesterday. And it's probably one of the most active deadlines I've ever seen in quite a while. We saw a plethora, a whole bunch of deals involving some of the biggest name players. Yeah, you always see, second rate type, not second rate, but second level, second tier players being moved around. This time you saw a lot of big name players coming up and they got moved around. And of course, whenever that happens, the futures odds, they go crazy. Now, the biggest winner of the trade deadline, without a doubt, Los Angeles Dodgers, because after they got Max Scherzer, which was unbelievable, and shortstop Trey Turner from the Nats, and they got lefty Danny Duffy from the Royals. Then they also came back, and what happened was they moved up on the money line from being a plus 380 down to a plus 275 to win the World Series. And that number comes out of DraftKings. Now, Los Angeles was already the favorite, we know that, to win the World Series. And now they're even a bigger favorite. It's almost feels unfair for them to get Max Scherzer. It's like, just unbelievable. We'll see what happens. Sometimes those things don't work out. It happens. So here are some of the other teams that did pretty good after the deadline finally came to an end. The Giants added Chris Bryant from the Cubs, and they moved from being a plus 1,400 to a plus 1,200 to win the World Series. The White Sox added a closer, Craig Kimbrell, from the Cubs right across town, and second baseman Cesar Hernandez from the Indians. So they moved up from being a plus 750 to a plus 650 to win the World Series. Meanwhile, the Yankees, well, as usual, when there's money going to be spent, the Yankees are going to be one of the teams that are going to be doing it. So they improved from being a plus 2,500 to a plus 2,200 after they got Joey Gallo, Anthony Rizzo, and that lefty, Andrew Heaney. And of course, Rizzo really came through yesterday for the Yankees with a huge 460-yard home run that he hit yesterday in his first time with the New York Yankees. So now those are the teams that did pretty well. Now, some teams, of course, didn't do as well. So let's take a look at some of those teams as well. The Mets kind of stole the headlines after trading for their shortstop, Javier Baez. However, their World Series odds actually dropped down a little bit, even though they did pick up Baez. Went from being a plus 800 up to being a plus 850. So the Padres, they fell from being a plus 700 to a plus 1,000. And San Diego, of course, they added Adam Frazier of the Pirates prior to the deadline. But San Diego failed to land Scherzer, who they really wanted. And they saw the Dodgers getting better without making a really coming back with somebody as powerful in the deals as well. The Cubs, well, they sold off several of their core pieces. They did away with Rizzo, Bryant, and Baez. Wow. Chicago retooled the farm system, getting many prospects in return. However, the odds on Chicago fell from being a plus 10,000 to being a plus 15,000 on the money line. The Nationals also cleaned house. They traded away Scherzer, they traded away Turner, Brad Hand, Kyle Schwarber, Van Gomez, and Josh Harrison. And when they did all of that, they fell from being a plus 10,000 to a plus 50,000 on the money line. A big drop there. So those are the losers. We talked about who the winners were. So we're going to see how that all turns out as the season comes to an end. The Dodgers, we talked about them during the week, and I know we do have some people that listen on the weekend, don't listen during the week, and vice versa. So just to let you know, we did talk about the Dodgers earlier in the week before the big trade, in fact, and thought that perhaps the Dodgers would still be a pretty good bet because of where they sat. Even though they weren't in first place at the time, the feeling was that San Francisco was playing over their head. And of course, the Dodgers was the choice as far as we were talking about it. But anyway, by taking on Scherzer and a few other players, they are now really getting themselves into position to make that run for the World Series. So that's the story about what happened with the trades. We talked about what happened yesterday. And of course, when we take our first break, and we do take 3 breaks within the show, when we come back, there are 3 baseball games on tap for today that we're going to take a close look at. We're going to look at the line movement in the games. We're going to determine which direction they're going, as well as trying to figure out in which direction the pros are going. That's what we're dealing with here, following the pros, see which direction they're betting, letting you know how they're betting, and of course, as always, leaving it up to you to decide whether or not you want to follow them or bet against them or not bet that game whatsoever. So the 3 games we're going to talk about today are the Kansas City Royals against the Toronto Blue Jays, the Red Sox against the Tampa Rays, and the Philadelphia Phillies against the Pittsburgh Pirates. Those are the games that we're going to take a close look at. check the money line, check the line movements, kind of give you an idea as to which direction the pros are going in those particular games. So that's the story for today. We're also going to talk some football. We're going to talk about the Washington football team, give you some thoughts and ideas on the over-under situation for their game totals. And we're also going to be talking about the Green Bay Packers as well. So let's get that first break out of the way. And as usual, it's only 1 minute long. So if that's the case, we'll be back into the sports wagering zone in 60 seconds. And welcome back. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. We're coming to you live from Denver, Colorado, right here on the I 95 Sports and Entertainment Network, the Mile High City, as they call it. And it's really kind of different from most other places I've been in. Being an East Coast guy, kind of seeing all those open spaces kind of looks a little different to me. But here we are. We're in Denver. We're on the I 95 Sports and Entertainment Network coming to you live. But of course, we're also on most of your major podcast platforms, such as Apple Podcast or Spotify or Google Podcasts. We're on them as well as iHeartRadio and others as well. We're also on Blackjack TV on the East Coast. And of course, we're also on Mile High Radio, milehighradio.com, right here in the Colorado area. So that's the story as far as that's concerned. Now let's take a look at the three games we mentioned to you before we went on our break. The Kansas City Royals and the Toronto Blue Jays. It's a 3 o'clock Eastern time game. And let's see which direction the line is flowing and in which direction the pros are going in this game. The Blue Jays took care of business yesterday. It's the first game in the series. They beat the Royals 6-4. They were a big minus 235 as a home favorite, so they were gone and away, the big favorite in that game. Now, in tonight's rematch, Kansas City comes in with their lefty, Mike Minor. He's 8-8 with a 5.32 ERA. And Toronto, they come back with their right-hander, Alek Manoah. He's 2-1 with a 2.90 ERA. Now, as we look at the line in this game, it opened with the Blue Jays as a minus 192 home favorite. That's the opening. The Royals were a plus 176 road dog. Now, not only the general public, but the professional bettors have sided with the home team, driving the Blue Jays up from being a minus 192 to minus 202. Keep in mind, they went as high as 235 yesterday. Now, home favorites, something to think about. If a home favorite is at minus 200 or more, they're at 71% this season. 71%. Non-division home favorites that are coming off a win have gone 62%. The Jays are 30-25 as a favorite this season. The Royals, 24-41 as a dog. So Toronto's going to lean on their hitting as well. The Jays are hitting 266 as a team. That's the second best batting average in Major League Baseball. The only team ahead of them, the Houston Astros. The Royals are hitting at 244. puts them at the 10th position as far as that's concerned. Kansas City is 17 and 32 on the road, and they have one of the worst records on the road in Major League Baseball. The pros are leaning on a lower scoring game in this game as well. The total has dropped down from 10.5 down to 2. So in this particular game, everybody seems to be on the Toronto Blue Jays. If you happen to like them in this game, you're going to have to lay some heavy wood as well. So far, it's up to 202. Yesterday, it closed at minus 235. Meanwhile, at 6 o'clock Eastern Time, you got the Boston Red Sox and the Tampa Bay Rays. The Red Sox are 63 and 42 this season. The Rays 62 and 42 this season, one game difference. And the Rays won last night's game 73. They were a minus 135 home favorite on the money line. The Red Sox, well, they lead the American League East only by a half a game over the Rays, who are in second place. Boston is currently a minus 125 favorite to win the division at BetMGM. Now, Tampa Bay is a short plus 130 dog. So in tonight's rematch, the Red Sox come out their right-hander, Nathan Eovaldi. He's 9 and 5 with a 3.49 ERA. The Rays come back with their left-hander, Ryan Yarbrough, who's 6 and 4 this season with a 4.38 ERA. Now, as we look at the line in this game, it opened with Boston a little short, minus 113 road favorite on the money line. Tampa is a plus 103 home dog. Now, the public sees two good teams. You got two teams fighting for first place. Boston's in first place. The other team is only a half game behind. So you got two teams that are pretty much the same. They're equal. So they see two good teams. So what happens? They don't know who to back. It's a toss-up. It's a flip a coin as far as they're concerned. And yet, we've seen the Rays go from being a plus 103 flipped over to a minus 104. So essentially, the game has become a pick 'em after opening with Boston as a short favorite. So what this means is the pro money is leaning on Tampa Bay in this game. The Rays have value in this game. They're a divisional dog. The pros also have taken a position on the under. After opening at 8.5 runs, it's dropped down to 8. Now, keep this in mind also. Historically speaking, the unders have been a smart long term play in games that are played in domes or when the roofs are closed at the stadium. The ball doesn't travel as far, and the conditions are perfect for the pitchers and the fielders as well. So, in this particular game, it's a close one. The Red Sox and Tampa Bay. Red Sox opened as a favorite. Now they're an underdog, but very slightly. It's almost a pick 'em. You can go almost either way. But the pros, they're on the Tampa Bay Rays in this game. So let's take that second break, get that one out of the way. When we come back, we're going to take a look at the Phillies and the Pittsburgh Pirates. Get a closer look at that game, see what the line movement is like in that game and kind of get an idea as to which direction the pros are going as well. But just as a reminder, to get a hold of us, it's not very difficult. Just send that email and send it to the sports wagering zone at gmail.com. That's the sports wagering zone at gmail.com. We'll be back into the zone in 1 minute. And welcome back. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. We're coming to you live from Denver, Colorado, right here in the Mile High City on the I 95 Sports and Entertainment Network, as well as most of the major podcast platforms such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and I would go through that list every day, but we're most of the major podcasts, so I'm not going to bore you with all that information. In the meantime, we're looking at some baseball games on tap for today, trying to get an idea as to which direction the pros are going, which direction the general public is going. So far, we talked about the Kansas City Royals against the Toronto Blue Jays. That's a 3 o'clock game this afternoon. In that one, everybody seems to agree the public and also the pros are on the Toronto Blue Jays. If you like the Toronto Blue Jays in this game, be prepared. You're going to have to lay some heavy wood. Yesterday, they went up at a minus 235 on the money line. Right now, they're a little over 200 at the present time, but that's who everybody is on. Meanwhile, at 6 o'clock, the Red Sox played the Tampa Bay Rays. This game's a little different. You got two teams. You got the Rays a half a point, half a game behind the Boston Red Sox. They're pretty equal. It's kind of a toss-up type of game. It can go either way. And as far as the pros are concerned, they are on the Tampa Rays. Other than that, it's pretty much a toss-up game, whichever way you want to go. Meanwhile, at 7 o'clock, finally, the Philadelphia Phillies, 51-52 in Pennsylvania, playing the Pittsburgh Pirates at 39-64. Now, the Pirates stole last night's game 7-0. They blanked the Phillies, and they were a plus 120 home dog at the same time. So in tonight's game, though, Philadelphia comes in with their ace, Aaron Nola. He's 7-6 with a 4.37 ERA. Pittsburgh comes out their right-hander, JT Brubaker, who's 4-10 this season, with a 4.67 ERA. The line opened with the Phillies listed as a minus 150 road favorite. The Pirates opened up as a plus 140 home dog. Now, the pro money has really come down on the Phillies. They expect them to bounce back with a win in this game, and they steamed Philadelphia up from minus 150 to minus 160. Now, something to keep in mind, non-division favorites receiving a steam of 10 cents or more have gone 62% this season. Non-division favorites. That's what Philadelphia is. They're a non-division favorite. And as far as a steam of 10 cents or more, they have gone 62% so far this season. The Phillies are 35-33 against right-handed pitchers. The Pirates, they're just 32-45 against right-handed pitchers. Now, we've also seen some pro money lean on the over in this game. The total started out at 8 and was juiced up to minus 120. Now, when you see that happen, it means there's a good possibility that that number will go up to 8.5. As far as the weather is concerned, the forecast calls for temperatures in the high 70s, winds at 5 miles per hour, and the winds will be blowing out to center field. So that's the third game on tap. The pros in this game are counting on the Phillies to come back and get back on their winning ways against the Pirates, even though the Pirates did win yesterday's game in a shutout, 7-0. So we're looking at line movements. By determining the line movement, we can tell which direction the professional bettors are going, and this is the information we try to give to you. Now, most of the time, you look at it, it could go either way. You look at that Red Sox Tampa Bay game. Now, that's a game that I'm sure if you take a close look at, if you were thinking about betting this game, you probably felt the same way most people do. It's a toss-up. the Red Sox, Tampa Bay, they're equal. Boston Red Sox half a game in front in first place. Both teams doing very, very well. So it's a toss up. So now you're not sure which way you want to go. So by knowing that the pros are leaning on Tampa Bay in that game, may be of some help in helping you determine in which direction to go. And that's the whole story of why we do what we do here in following the pros and which way they go. Now, as far as the record so far for this little system or method, whatever you want to call it, yesterday we had two plays. Had the Reds against the Mets. In that game, we had the Mets. And of course, as you know, the Reds beat the Mets. So that's a loser. In the Baltimore Detroit game, we were on Detroit, and Baltimore won that game. So they had two losers yesterday. Now, as we look back further behind that, as we look towards the day before that, we had two plays, had one winner and one loser. The day before that, there was one winner and one loser. The day before that, you had two winners and one loser. So kind of give you an idea of a trend in which direction they're going. So you could take a look at this Tampa Bay Boston Red Sox game and say, well, the pros, well, they've lost just two in a row. So maybe they're ready to come back with a win. This may be one of those games. So I'll take Tampa Bay. Or you may say, hey, look, they're on their, they're on a downward slope. Everybody goes into these slumps. They may be in a slump. So I'm going to bet on the Boston Red Sox. It all depends how you look at it through which window you happen to be looking at the time. Now, so far as the month of July goes, we have one more day to go, and that's today. So far, we've had 60 plays within the month of July, 30 winners. 30 out of 60 puts you at exactly 50%. So that's the story as far as the totals go. We try to keep you up to date on it. And again, if they're doing well, we tell you about it. And if they're not doing well, we tell you about it as well. No, we have no dog in this fight. We're just bringing you the information, trying to be as honest with the information as possible so that you can make a well calculated, educated, situational guess as to which team is going to win a certain game. Or you might even just want to go for the amount of runs being scored. Either way, we try to give you that information and then you run with it any way you want. So let's get that third break out of the way. When we come back, we're going to be talking NFL football because, hey, right around the corner, you're going to have the Cowboys game coming up soon as far as the Hall of Fame Bowl is concerned. And then before you know it, September 9th, September 10th comes around, and there you go. The season will be starting all over again. So we get to start thinking in that particular direction. So let's get that break out of the way. And when we come back, we'll be talking NFL football. You're in the sports wagering zone. And of course, we'll be back in 60 seconds. And welcome back. Here we go again. You're back in the sports wagering zone. I'm Chris Pardo. We're coming to you live from Denver, Colorado, the Mile High City. live on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network. And of course, we're also on most of your major podcast platforms as well. So we talked about baseball. We'll recap those three games once again before we go off the air. But let's now turn to some football talk. The Washington football team. We talked about this yesterday during the week. I thought it'd be a good idea to bring it up again on Saturday, also because different people listen on Saturdays that don't listen during the week and vice versa. So just want to make sure you get all the information that we kind of thinking about. So the Washington football team, you know that their over under is 8.5. So you know that most of the pundits this year, they're going to love Washington. They came up from the abyss of last year. They started out as 2-7. They wound up winning the NFC East last year. And of course, you know, that was that big game against Philadelphia. They covered the spread in the first round of the playoffs. So they're going to be the talk of the town to a lot of guys this coming season. The over under being at 8.5. Here, in looking at some of this data, we kind of think that the under 8.5 is the way to go because the season win totals are not a battle of the team, it's a battle of the team against the schedule. And in this case, I kind of think the schedule is going to win this battle. In weeks 1 and 2, let's take a look at their schedule coming up this season. Washington plays the Chargers and the Giants in the first two games. Now, more likely than not, this is probably going to be a split, but a lot of that will depend on how well the Giants come out. The Chargers, that looks like it should be a win for the Chargers. As far as the Giants game is concerned, a lot of good reports coming out of camp. But again, you don't know until they actually play. So let's just say, for the sake of argument, that they beat the Giants, so they're 1-1 at that time. But then you come to week 3 and you go through week 12. Well, in this time period, lots of luck to you if you're on Washington, because the schedule includes games against the following teams. You're playing the Bills, the Chiefs, the Packers, the Buccaneers, the Seahawks, and the Saints. And you had road games in Atlanta and here in Denver, and that's not going to be an easy situation either as far as Atlanta and Denver are concerned. One of the easier non-division matchups is going to be against the Raiders. But again, more bad news for Washington. The game is going to be in Vegas. The Raiders are going to be on a rest day because they have played the Thursday of the week before. Okay. On the other hand, Washington will be off of a Monday night game who they're playing against Seattle. So they're going to be on a short rest. So even that game is sort of against them as well. Now, even games against the Cowboys they were layups last year are not going to be so much this year. Of course, Dak Prescott, he's hurt a little bit right now. He'll be coming back. More than likely, he'll be back to his old form again. And Washington had the good fortune to play the Cowboys when Andy Dalton was their quarterback and when Ben DiNucci was the quarterback last year. They defeated Nick Mullins and Ryan Finley, and they won that infamous Nate Sudfeld game in week 17 against the Eagles. Okay. And of course, that was controversial as well because of, what happened with the coaches taking out the starting quarterback and putting in someone who doesn't even belong on the field, let's say. Okay. Now, they got a big schedule. So I kind of think that Washington is destined more for 6 or 7 wins next year, or this year, let's say this year, okay? Winning 9 or more and going over 500 would be a major accomplishment because you got a team that's being led by Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's played almost in every team in the NFL. He's never made the playoffs in almost 20 years. So take the under in this game if you're looking at it. Analyze it. Maybe you'll agree with us. Maybe you won't. We're looking for the under. And don't be afraid to look at some other unders as well, because the schedule could make for a pretty long year, not only for Washington, but for other teams as well. So that's the story. We kind of took a quick look at that, kind of give you an idea as to what was going on, how it's going to be going on. But like always, we leave the final decision up to you. Give you the facts, try to give you some thoughts and ideas. Kind of think about it. Say, take a look at that schedule. You know, try not to be emotional. The more emotional you become, the less chance you're going to have of winning. That's what we try to teach you here at the show. Try to be more analytical. Take the emotion out. You can't be emotional. You have to go by the numbers. If you play the numbers, you're going to do a lot more better than you will if you thought, no, I like their color. I like this team. It's my favorite. Whatever it is, there's always something that comes into play. Or this team can't win this game. Or this team can't lose this game. Okay, we've seen this happen so often, year after year after year. Last season, when we were talking about the NFL, I'm a diehard Giant fan. I love the Giants. I live and I bleed blue, to give you an idea. I would see the numbers on games where they were definitely the underdog. There's no way you should be betting this team. But then you look at the numbers say yes. Or sometimes you don't think we should be betting or they should be, the numbers say no. Go with the numbers. We've seen it happen so many times. I find it myself in my own life with the Giants. I'm sure you would if you kind of take a closer look at the situation and whatever your favorite team happens to be, if you happen to have one anymore. Okay. So let's take a look at baseball. Once again, the three games on tap for today. The 3 o'clock game, the Kansas City Royals take on the Toronto Blue Jays. Toronto Blue Jays, big favorites, not only by the general public, but also by the pros as well. So, like I say, get ready to lay some heavy wood if you're going to be betting on Toronto in that game. Meanwhile, just the opposite, the Red Sox against the Tampa Rays. This is a toss-up game. Started out the Red Sox being a favorite. Then turns out now the Red Sox are an underdog, but only by 1.5, 103 minus 103 plus 103. It's just very close. It's very close with Tampa Bay. Red Sox in first place. Tampa Bay's a half a game behind. Here you have one of those situations, toss a coin or whatever you want to do. But just in case you're looking at this game and you're not sure which way to go, just to let you know, the pros, they're on Tampa Bay in this game. And finally, at 7 o'clock tonight, the Phillies, the Philadelphia Phillies. I see Philadelphia and I think Eagles. Philadelphia Phillies and the Pittsburgh Pirates. In this game, the pros are on the Philadelphia Phillies to come back and win this game after losing last night's shutout to the same Pirates organization. So that's the story on those three games. We talked about the over-under situation as far as game totals are concerned in the NFL, and we'll keep a close update on them as we go along because, well, we're not that far away from kickoff time for the NFL. So it's Saturday morning, Sunday afternoon in some places. I want to thank you very much for listening. We're here every Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern Time. We're here Monday through Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time. So it's a weekend, a little raining here in Denver today, maybe a little rain tomorrow. Might not be a great weekend as far as weather's concerned. I hope it's a lot better wherever you are. Enjoy the weekend. Once again, if you're going to be betting, I certainly hope you have a profitable weekend as well. So we'll be back again tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, right here on the I-95 Sports and Entertainment Network, coming to you live from Denver, Colorado. So again, have a very pleasant weekend. But more importantly than that, if you're going to be betting this weekend, I hope you have a profitable weekend as well. The purpose of the show is to try to put you into the profit column. So until tomorrow at 11 a.m., have a great Sunday, great Saturday. We'll be back again tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. Goodbye, everybody.